Welcome in the second section of our course. In this section, we'll be looking at the REST and servlets with Spring Boot. So we'll expose our resources via REST endpoint, and also we will be interacting with HTTP request response via Servlet API that is integrated with Spring Boot and Spring ecosystem. So at the beginning, we will see how to expose our user via REST endpoint. Once we will have that skeleton, we'll be intercepting REST calls via filter. So we'll be using filter abstraction that is available in a servlets API to filter and intercept HTTP request response. Next video will be about using filter to add transaction support to REST endpoint. Once we will know that, we will try to plug both filters in our logic. Finally, we'll be performing testing of ordering exceptions. And this is a first video in which we'll be exposing our users via REST endpoint. So at the beginning, we'll be creating users repository. We will see how to create a very simple in-memory repository. We will be looking at these concepts more in depth in the next section. Next, we'll be creating user service. So we'll create a user service that is a proxy between controller and repository. Final thing will be to expose our users via the REST call. So let's start coding. So we're starting from users repository. This is a class that will extend CRUD repository, and we need to specify an entity. So the class that we'll be using, it is an user and also an ID. So user is a simple class that has ID, name, and email, and long is an ID. It is not so important for us right now, but it has find by name method. So let's look where it is injected. So this is important. So we have the user service. User service is an interface that has get all users, insert, and get payment and users for user ID. But for us right now, important is that we are able to get all users. We will try to intercept that specific call. Here we are using payment repository, but as I said, we will be focusing on that more in the next section. But right now, we are only interested in the get all users method. So let's look at the use case of this method and when it is referenced. So it is referenced in the endpoint. So this is an actual endpoint that we will be intercepting via the filter mechanism. So it is a REST controller, so it is a component, as we can see, and it is a controller, and this is component underneath. So it will add some things at top of the component abstraction, leveraging the Spring annotation-driven mechanism. We are using the user service here, and we are performing the constructor injection, because user service will be the proxy for getting all users that we need. We are using post construct to fill our users with some data, and we are inserting something here, but this is for the testing purpose. And final thing that is the most important in this example is get method. We are creating a get endpoint that is a very simple endpoint, and it should only get all users. So it leverages the user service and get all users method. It should return a list of elements, but here we can see that we need to fetch the find all. Find all is returning the iterable, so we need to make it a list. So we are using the stream support, passing the splitterator that is underneath on the iterator. It should be not evaluated in parallel, and we are collecting everything to list. Once we have that, we are returning it back to the controller, and in the controller, we are doing a simple mapping. So we are mapping the entity to the user DTO. So this is a data transfer object that is exposed to our end user via the REST endpoint. This is important to have distinction between entity and the DTO. Finally, we are collecting everything using toList modifier, so it will just return the list of user DTO. What's important for us, we are producing application JSON, so we are leveraging built-in mechanism in Spring. As I said in the first video on the first section, we needed Jersey dependency to be able to convert that automatically by the Spring. So we are converting Java class to application JSON data format, and our browser will be looking at this content in a nice way. So once we have the user's endpoint, we'll be able to intercept that endpoint and calls to this specific endpoint. We'll be doing it in the next video.